Good morning, everyone. Today, we're going to explore a powerful concept articulated by Steve Jobs. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. This idea is at the heart of understanding how seemingly unrelated challenges and experiences can converge to create something extraordinary. We'll examine 3 key dots in Steve Jobs' journey: the wilderness, represented by NeXT, the soul, found in Pixar, and finally, the convergence that led to the iPhone. Let's start with a crucial turning point: the lightness of being a beginner. In 1985, at the age of 30, Steve Jobs faced a profound setback when he was publicly fired from Apple by John Sculley. He initially felt he had dropped the baton, failing the generations before him. But what seemed like a destruction of his status quo turned out to be a hidden gift. The heavy burden of past success was replaced by the liberating lightness of being a beginner again. This unexpected freedom propelled him into arguably the most creative period of his life, leading to the founding of NeXT and Pixar. As Jobs himself later reflected, "I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me." Our first dot is NeXT, which ultimately proved to be a Trojan horse for Apple's future operating system. Between 1985 and 1996, Apple struggled with an aging, crash-prone OS. Meanwhile, NeXT was diligently building what would become the future of computing. In 1996, Apple acquired NeXT for $427 million. However, the real value wasn't in NeXT's hardware. Apple truly bought 3 invaluable assets: Steve Jobs himself, a visionary leader; NeXT, a revolutionary operating system; and object-oriented development, which brought unparalleled speed and efficiency. The key takeaway here is profound. NeXT became the fundamental blueprint for macOS, which, in turn, eventually gave birth to iOS, the operating system in your pocket today. Let's delve deeper into the code that runs the world, stemming directly from NeXT. This diagram illustrates the core components that still underpin Apple's ecosystem. First, we have bundles, the grandfather of today's EPA files, where apps appear as icons but are truly folders of interconnected assets. Next, Interface Builder, a drag-and-drop tool for graphical user interfaces, which democratized app creation. Then, Objective-C, a dynamic language that allowed for faster, more flexible development and influenced languages like Java and C#. And finally, the Unix Foundation, providing crucial stability by introducing preemptive multitasking and protected memory, preventing one crashing app from taking down the entire system. As a fascinating legacy note, to this day, many classes in Apple's development frameworks begin with NS, a silent but powerful nod to NeXT. Our second dot is Pixar, marking a significant shift from focusing purely on processor speed to the power of storytelling. Jobs' journey with Pixar began with a gamble. He bought it from George Lucas for just $5 million when Lucas needed cash. The initial goal for Pixar was to sell high-end graphics hardware. But then came the pivot. To showcase their advanced hardware, they started making animated shorts, like Tin Toy, in 1988. This creative exploration eventually led to Toy Story in 1995, the world's first computer-animated feature film. The outcome was phenomenal. Disney later acquired Pixar for $7.4 billion. This entire period taught Jobs a crucial lesson: technology alone is never enough, it must serve a compelling narrative. From Pixar, we learn about institutionalizing candor and creative friction through what they called the Braintrust methodology. This process is built on 3 pillars. First, candor. Brutal honesty is required. The solidity of the product matters far more than individual feelings. Second, separation. Criticism is always directed at the work itself, never at the person creating it. And third, authority. While the Braintrust provides invaluable notes and feedback, the director ultimately has the final say. There is no management override on creative choices. The profound lesson here is that true innovation thrives on creative friction. Avoiding conflict often leads directly to mediocrity. Let's move to 1997, marking Steve Jobs' return to Apple and a renewed focus through the discipline of the 4-quadrant matrix. His strategic action was immediate. He killed the clones, the licensing agreements that diluted Apple's control, to regain command of the ecosystem. He drastically slashed a confused inventory of dozens of products down to this simple, elegant matrix. Across the top, you see consumer and professional, down the side, desktop and portable. This gave us products like the iMac and iBook for consumers, and the Power Mac G3 and PowerBook for professionals. Jobs declared, "We are going to do for digital creation what Microsoft did for the Office suite productivity." By 2001, Apple's strategy further evolved, positioning the Mac as the digital hub. The computer became the central station for what Jobs termed the digital lifestyle. This era saw several key launches that cemented Apple's dominance. First, iTunes in 2001, serving as the essential software glue. Then, the revolutionary iPod, famously described as 1,000 songs in your pocket, which changed music consumption forever. And finally, the iTunes Music Store in 2003, a groundbreaking collaboration with the Big 5 Feet labels, offering 200,000 legal songs. The genius of this strategy was Apple's ability to control the hardware with the iPod, the software with iTunes, and the service with the Music Store, effectively creating a powerful quasi-monopoly. Now, for perhaps the most pivotal moment, the dinner party provocation. At a dinner party, a Microsoft employee, perhaps a bit too enthusiastically, bragged about their stylus-ruled tablet PC. Jobs was furious, proclaiming, "God gave us 10 styluses, our fingers." He firmly believed the stylus was a fundamental failure of design. His directive was clear: let's show them how a tablet is made. They prototyped a multi-touch interface for a tablet, and as they worked, Jobs realized the immense potential. But then came the crucial pivot: put the tablet on hold. Let's build a phone. And so, the iPhone project was born from an act of defiance. This pivot led to Project Purple, and with it, the immense cost of perfection. The secrecy around this project was extreme. Staff couldn't even tell their spouses. When a door lock broke, they guarded the room with bats rather than risk calling a repairman. The pressure was immense, with managers arguing with Jobs about the toll on their families. Yet, the Braintrust culture of perfectionism drove them forward. There were great debates: Linux versus OS X, ultimately choosing OS X, bringing NeXT's legacy to mobile. Physical keyboard versus screen, risking everything for the adaptability of a screen. And plastic versus glass, a last-minute change to glass to prevent scratches. These decisions were a testament to their relentless pursuit of perfection. And this brings us to the convergence: how exile truly built the empire. On January 9, 2007, Steve Jobs famously declared, "Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone." This wasn't just a bold claim, it was the culmination of everything he had learned. The iPhone, as we know it, is the intersection of three powerful forces. First, the brain, represented by NeXT, bringing its UNIX OS, Objective-C, and robust development tools. Second, the heart, from Pixar, providing the critical understanding of storytelling, the Braintrust process, and the power of candor. And finally, the body, from Apple itself, contributing its iconic industrial design and the successful digital hub strategy. The iPhone was not an overnight invention, it was the brilliant synthesis of these disparate experiences. This convergence led to an extraordinary economic value of differentiation. Apple strategically built a strong ecosystem, making the threat of new entrants very low due to the high cost of replication. The threat of substitutes was also low, thanks to the unique UI and the lock-in effect of the App Store. Rivalry, at least initially, was low because Apple pursued a blue ocean strategy, avoiding direct price competition with commodity handsets. Unlike Microsoft with Windows, Apple steadfastly refused to license iOS, maintaining total control over the user experience. This comprehensive control was the bedrock of its competitive advantage. The ghost in the machine illustrates how the technical decisions made during the NeXT wilderness years are very much alive in your pocket today. As Will Shipley aptly put it, if Apple hadn't bought NeXT, the iPhone would have just been an iPod that made calls. Let's compare the 1990s NeXT technologies like Display PostScript now power Retina display rendering. WebCore, based on KHTML, is fundamental to Safari, and the mobile web and AppKit has evolved into Cocoa Touch, the foundation for all modern apps. These foundational elements from NeXT, developed in the shadows, became the invisible architecture of a global phenomenon. To conclude, I want to leave you with Steve Jobs' iconic advice: stay hungry, stay foolish. The wilderness years, his firing from Apple, the seemingly failed hardware ventures of NeXT, the risky purchase of Pixar, these were not detours on his path to success. They were, in fact, the essential research and development lab for the future. Success is rarely a straight line. Instead, it is a collection of dots, seemingly disparate at the time, that only make perfect sense when you look backward. It's about trusting that those dots will somehow connect.